Hello and welcome to Young's video virtual snapshot work experience.
Today you're going to be able to get a tour of the ground and you're going to be able to find out what different departments do in Trent Bridge.
To make the most of today's work experience, in the description of this video there's going to be a link to a booklet that you can download and make notes on what you learned today. We're going to be interviewing people from around the ground in different jobs. Welcome to Trent Bridge Community Trust. This is where all of the charity work takes place. Trent Bridge Community Trust is funded in partnership with Radcliffe Borough Council.
And this is where we caught up with Mark and Danny, and I also spoke to Max here about what the trust does.
So what's your role and what does your department do?
So my role is I'm the Community Projects Manager here at the Trent Bridge Community Trust, and our department really looks at the community element and the community delivering service for Nottinghamshire County Cricket Club.
Awesome. And to get to kind of where you are today, what's your kind of journey? What sort of things have you done along the way?
So when I left school, I was a professional footballer, signed for Mansfield Town. I got to about 27 and realised that the riches in football weren't coming my way. So I needed to find myself a career. So I started volunteering in a school and got some experience working with young people. And then I was a mentor for 5-6 years in the school, and then applied for the role as the Positive Futures Coordinator, as it was at the time. And that was 11 years ago, and as they say, the rest is history.
Amazing. So what sort of kind of skills are really important and relevant for your job and people in your kind of position?
I think being organised is one. I think it's important that we're organised and you can help other people to be organised. I think having good personable skills is really important, because we're having to deal with lots of different people. Young people is important in our business, but also dealing with head teachers and directors of businesses and the chief exec and the committee level here as well.
So what advice would you have for any kind of young people wanting to get into following your footsteps?
I think it's important that they build their experience in, again, working with young people, working in youth type organisations, and not just working with one type of young person too. There's lots of different types of young people. So we might have young people that are get into a little bit of trouble at school. It's important that we experience that type of work, as well as those young people that are more driven and know exactly where they want to go. So getting a whole spectrum of different type of young people, because then you can relate more, and I think that's important that we can relate.
So what's your job role and what does your department do?
So I'm the Positive Futures Project Officer, and we do lots of different things, mainly go into secondary schools doing one-to-one packages, and we start off with a needs assessment with any of our referrals. So we work through that package of work for a period of 6 weeks, and then that also goes into showing us any extra needs that they may have, that we then choose different packages of work to lead on from that.
Awesome. And what was your kind of role to get into this career? Because it's quite a unique one, isn't it?
Yeah, to be fair, I came into this career, I'd just finished university, and I'd had other jobs, like bar work and things like that, through being at university, but I was doing a bit of PPA, basically working in primary schools doing PE support and things like that. And then the role came up for a summer role here, and I kind of went through there. So I started off here as like the summer stand-in, doing like the sports and things, and then progressed as the role came available. It's changed quite a lot since being here, so we've had lots of different job role names.
Excellent. And what sort of skills would you say that you need in this role? What sort of are the best skills for the role?
I think you've got to have a lot of patience, and you've got to be really resilient, because not every young person is gonna like how you work or what it is that you or even families as well. You definitely have to have a little bit about you in terms of the different young people and families that you work with. But I think the most important thing is you've got to be very understanding that every young person is different, and once you've kind of got to know that young person, and that's where you can then lead on those relationships and build a good rapport. I think that's probably one of the only ways that it works really well, and we get out of what we need from those families and young people. So yeah, patience, resilience, and lots of understanding.
a great answer. So my final question for you, is there any kind of advice that you'd give any young people that might want to go into this sort of career pathway?
Nothing's ever the same. It constantly changes all the time with trends in young people, different challenges they're facing. Obviously at the moment there's lots of like mental health awareness around all of that. So it's always going to be very different. Just be consistent, kind of always keep on top of, you know, like the latest kind of what's happening in the world. And just never kind of give up. Like, you know, I remember first starting in my role, and I'm quite, I'm somebody who cares a lot, so it's really hard sometimes to kind of not take things to heart, especially working with young people. They're quite brutal sometimes, and just really honest, which is great, and we encourage that, but it took a while to learn that they're not personal digs at you, it's just kind of like things that they're dealing with. And once you kind of grasp that, it becomes a lot easier. So yeah.
So tell me what your job role is.
So my job role is the Young Project Officer, and the Young Project is basically part of Trent Bridge Community Trust, which is the charitable part of Trent Bridge. And the whole point of the project is to help young people to get employability skills, give them the experience and the things that they need to get ahead and get that initial experience into the world of work.
Oh, brilliant. And what does your department actually do as a whole?
So within Trent Bridge Community Trust, there's a lot of different projects, and we cater for a whole range of things. So there's Positive Futures, who are a mentoring team, and they assist with young people who are at risk of exclusion and work with them on a one-to-one basis in school to give them some additional help and guidance to get onto the right pathway. There's Healthy Hearts, which is a project about helping young people reduce the risk of obesity and teach them about the benefits of the heart. There's the Young Project, which I've already explained. There's Ready for Work. There's a whole different range of projects, as well as Forget-Me-Nots, which is all about helping people who suffer from dementia and their carers have a safe space to talk and to come and socialise.
Oh wow, that sounds excellent. What kind of inspired you to help young people, and what steps did you have to take to get into the role that you're doing today?
So it's a bit of an interesting one, and it wasn't as simple as kind of applying for the job and getting the job. When I was at university, I did what's called a sandwich year. So I did a placement year for, so during my third year of university, I did a 4-year course. I applied for 50 different placements to try and get a year in industry to get that initial experience. And I didn't get any of them. I kept applying and got rejected until finally I applied for the young role, and I managed to get that. I gained a year of experience, and then after I finished my degree, after I finished my year of work, I went back into university, finished off my degree, and then I got asked to come back and fill the Young Project role again afterwards. So it was a bit of a process, and the rejections were things to learn from, and with each rejection I kind of learned what went wrong with my application, and then that enabled me to learn the skills and develop into the role and the person that I am today.
Excellent. And what advice would you give to any young person watching this today that wants to go into a similar role?
For me, I think the key thing is attitude and experience. If you showcase that you have the right attitude and that you show that you're proactive, you're engaged and you're interested, that's going to go a long way, because I think attitude is something that can't necessarily be taught, and it's inherent, and it comes from doing something that you enjoy and something that you love. So always try and get experience in the things that you're passionate about and the things that you value. And I think for me, that's the key thing. The more experience that you have, the better position that you're likely to be in when it comes down to job searching or finding that eventual outcome. It is all about the experience and how well you portray yourself and what you're willing to get involved in. So at the moment we're stood at the top of Radcliffe Road stand, which has an absolutely amazing view, and on a match day this is absolutely packed with spectators. Possibly the best view in the house, in my opinion.
This is the greatest view of the pitch, and as you can tell by the great ground, it's also managed by the man himself, Steve Burks, who we also caught up with.
So what's your job role and what does your department do?
I'm Steve Burks, head groundsman here at Trent Bridge. I've been here 23 years. My department look after the green bit of Trent Bridge, so it's all the grass and all the net pitches and everything. So we get all the pitches ready for the players to play cricket on and nets for practicing.
And that's people don't really think about grounds people as like a job necessarily that they might aspire to. But what was your kind of route to get into where you are today?
My route, I wanted something to do with sport. And I wasn't good enough to play at the highest level, so I thought the next best thing is to be involved. I started off in maybe grassroots, doing local pitches.
Literally.
Yeah, true. Yeah, and then managed to get a junior groundsman's job at Nottinghamshire Cricket Club, and I worked there for 16 years. And I became the youngest head groundsman in England when I was about 23. On the cricket side, and then in 1997 I got the opportunity to come here to Trent Bridge, and I've been here, I think it's my 23rd season coming up. So yeah, so it's been fantastic, and it's just remember, it's you get involved and it's lovely, but you've got to give it 100% because it takes over your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because people don't kind of realise how long hours groundsmen work and stuff. What are the kind of hours? How do you...
With the hours, I mean, we come in sometimes 7:15, and some days we don't get home till, maybe sometimes midnight. It depends what games we've got, but we come in because you can't cheat nature, and you don't get, when it's rained for 2 days, you've maybe not been very busy, and then the sun comes out, you've got to start putting extra hours in to try and gain back what you've lost. So it is long hours, and I mean, my kids, I've got 3 kids, and last time I saw them, one was here, and now they're about 18, 21. Some of them said it just flies, so you don't, you miss out on family life sometimes, but it's a good career.
And what sort of skills would you say that you need to be a head groundsman or a groundsman?
I think you need the passion. You need to get to college. I went to Broomfield. You need to go to college and do the courses, but you've got to have time. You've got to have understanding people around you, and you've got to love the passion. You've got to love the outdoors, and getting wet as well.
And then what advice would you say that there is for, what advice would you have for young people wanting to kind of follow in your footsteps?
I think you've got to get into it, get to the local cricket club at first when you're very young and start, helping the groundsman out and learning, from a very young age. And then once you've decided you do enjoy it, there's apprenticeships out there. And I mean, that's how I started on apprenticeship. So you can start off on an apprenticeship and then build your way up. And hopefully one day you might take over from me.
So we're currently stood in one of 2 indoor sports halls that Trent Bridge has, believe it or not, actually in the stand themselves. And in this place, a lot of different training happens. The first team train here, as well as a variety of different other teams. And it's something that you may not have known about Trent Bridge.
A lot of coaching also happens here, and we're going to find out a bit more about that with Ian.
So, what's your job title and what does your department do?
So my job title is Cricket Development Officer. I work in the Community and Development Department, and we're responsible for all recreational cricket in the county. So anything that's non-professional, ranging from schools all the way up to weekend club cricket and everything in between.
And what's your kind of route to get to where you are today? Because I mean, have you always kind of been in cricket, or have you done a variety of different jobs, or?
I've done quite a few different jobs over the years. I left school and studied sports science, and from there went and I worked in gyms, worked my way up through there, and even in local authority health referral programs. And then I moved into sports development, which is what got me in the path towards coming and joining Trent Bridge, and I've been here since 2016.
Amazing. And in your job, what would you say are the kind of key skills that you need in order to kind of exceed and best do your job?
So my role is a lot of working in the community, so communication skills, relationship building, listening and understanding what that community wants in order to get cricket in their area. That's important, as well as understanding budgets and meeting deadlines, teamwork, all those sorts of things really.
Brilliant. And would you say that what advice would you have for any young people wanting to kind of follow in your footsteps and get to where you are?
I think the main piece of advice I would give would be to find something that you really enjoy doing and that you're passionate about and follow that through. Sport's something that's always been of interest to me, and I've always worked in sport. My entire career has been in the sports industry. And when you love what you do, it makes going to work a lot easier.
So we're currently pitchside where all of the home games of the Notts Outlaws are played, and recently they won the T20 Vitality Blast Championship.
And this is where we also caught up with Thomas Holdcroft.
So tell me, what is your role and what does your department do?
So I'm the head of marketing and communications, so that includes probably two distinct elements really. The first being the money making side of the club, the marketing of products to make to add commercial value to the club, and also the corporate comms, be that internally with staff within the organisation or external output, be it press releases, website content, just things when we need to communicate with the outside world. That side of things as well.
Perfect. And so in terms of how you got to your job as head of communications, it's quite a fairly kind of developed role. What was your kind of route to get to where you are today?
So I'm in my second spell at Trent Bridge now. I started off at, first of all, university, journalism course at Staffordshire University. Straight from that, I got a job working on comms and marketing at Derbyshire Cricket Club. I was going to say within their team, but it wasn't a team then. I was sort of the beginning of them having a marketing and comms function was appointing me to that role. I was at Derbyshire for 8 years, ultimately as their media and marketing manager, by which point we did have a team. Applied for a similar role here successfully in 2015. A couple of years here in that job, 18 months at Derbyshire Police as their media and comms manager, and then back to Trent Bridge as head of marketing and comms. Wow,
so quite a role. And what would you say were the kind of like key skills that you need to be in this kind of forward-facing communications role?
We like to split the disciplines into four key areas for Marcoms: brand, content, data and experience. I think if you make yourself an expert in those four areas, so once you get to sort of management, head of department level like myself, it's recruiting and training people around you to be skillful in those areas as well. But yeah, your brand is basically how your organisation looks externally. Content is the stuff that you put out to entertain people. Data is what you do to make sure you've got the right messages going to the right people rather than just blanket to everybody. And experience is crucial, and that's where you need the help of the whole organisation really, because if as a marketing team you are promoting something, if the experience of that was to then let the consumer down, then it will be a waste of your time. So you find yourself in marketing as sort of the keepers of the customer experience, the people who are championing it all the time and the importance of it, and trying to be responsible for making sure all areas of the ground are keeping to it. But that's just a massive whole business effort really from everybody.
Amazing. And so quite a lot of kind of young people want to get into marketing. What advice would you have for any young person wanting to get into this industry? It's
a difficult one actually, because for very good reason, rules and regulations are brought into place to make sure that people don't have the mickey taken out of them when it comes to doing work for no money, etc. But then my advice would be to be prepared to do something for nothing to open a door for yourself. So when I was at university, I was plodding through university, if you like, and I had a meeting with one of my tutors, and that tutor said, "What's the plan? What are you going to do for a job when you finish this?" I had absolutely no idea. But he said he liked my cricket stuff. He asked who I supported. I supported Derbyshire. He asked what their sort of media operation is like. I said it's very poor. He says, "There's your job, go and get it." So then it was badgering the chief exec of Derbyshire, saying, "Can you let me do some writing for your website? Let's have a look at your website because it's not very good," etc. I think I was on my third email to him by the time he got back to me, and then I ended up doing a load of work, 26,000 words of writing for their website for no money. I managed to submit 9,000 of those as my dissertation project, so there was some value to it for me as well. But then on the back of that, once I'd finished university, they realised that they still needed somebody to do that, so then they had to employ me. So you know, I'm not sure it's a route that would work in the modern day, because I know that it's sort of, once you work over this number of hours, you need to start being paid. When does it stop being placement, and when does it become employment and all that? And I'm sure those rules are in place for a good reason, but I would say that it would be to your benefit in a marketing and comms world to blur that a little bit if you need to, and be prepared to do something for nothing just to get yourself out there and noticed.
So we're currently stood at the top of the Smith Cooper stand, and around the ground you'll see a lot of different sponsorship boards, and behind us is one of the main sponsors of Trent Bridge as well, John Pye.
And this is where we also caught up with Michael Temple.
So what's your job title, and what does your department do?
I'm the commercial director here at Trent Bridge, so I think I see the role of my department is to take care of the business operation of Trent Bridge. And while that may sound like a bit of a crude term, our role is to make sure that we've got all the resources we need to invest in the team, invest in the venue, and to invest in all the community schemes that we deliver here at Trent Bridge.
Awesome. And to get to like a director level, you must have had quite a kind of journey to get there. What was your route to get into where you are today?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to work in sport, and my initial route was through journalism actually. So I studied media at university and decided that, you know, rather than getting the kind of typical supermarket job, I'd try and apply for a few things that were of genuine interest. And the role that first grabbed my attention was media management for a Premiership rugby team in 2003. So that was my very first job in sport. Spent a very enjoyable few years there, and I was lucky enough to make the leap into cricket in 2008. Became head of marketing and comms here at Trent Bridge, and then was very fortunate to go and work with Hugh Morris at Glamorgan, who gave me my first chance to take on a kind of wider commercial direction. Then spent 2 years in London, where I established the commercial programme at the Olympic Stadium, following the London Olympics in 2012. And then my old boss, Justin Toes, decided to move on from Trent Bridge, and I was given the opportunity to return here in January 2018. So yeah, look, quite a long journey to get here. I graduated in 2005, and here we are now 16 years on. But yeah, absolutely no regrets in my career. Love where I'm at now and love the journey that I've been on.
Amazing. And what would you say are some of the kind of key skills that are really useful in a job like yours?
I think as you climb the ladder and try and find yourself a wider remit and a bigger role, it's important to acknowledge that you can't have every skill. So while I come from a kind of marketing and comms background, journalistic background, and I now find myself, you know, looking after a catering operation and a ticket office and all of these things. So I think if someone's genuine desire is to try and take on a commercial department, they should take a long, hard look at themselves, work out what they're good at, and rather than try and be all things to all men, surround yourself with good people who can pick up the slack on areas where you're potentially not so hot. So have a focus, you know what you want to do, know what you want to be good at. Make a list of the things that you can't do and find good people to do those as well.
Brilliant. And I guess my last question for you is, you may have kind of already answered it, but what advice would you have for any young people wanting to kind of follow in your footsteps in that kind of field?
Look, it's a difficult time for the sports industry. I think that everyone now wants to work in creative industries, in particular in areas that are of particular interest. You can't give up. There's going to be knocks along the way. I think I'm probably one of the rare exceptions that was able to start at a reasonable level in media management at 19. But there's all kinds of people that I've worked with at various points in my career who've taken different routes, and I think the one thing that they all have in common is a work ethic and a kind of clarity of focus, that wherever they're at now, they know where they need to go and what steps to get there. So tip for a young person starting out, write those letters, be cheeky, ask those questions, look for the work X, and if there's anything at all that I pride myself on, it's kind of answering those calls and being available and giving people advice as they need it. But yeah, just know what that dream is and don't stop chasing it.
So we're currently here in the dressing rooms at Trent Bridge, where the players get prepared for a big match. And to find out more about this process and about the players, we'll go to Mick Newell. So what's your job role and what's your department?
So I'm the Director of Cricket at Trent Bridge. My department is all of professional cricket and all of the academy and elite age group cricket.
Awesome. And so kind of how did you get into your current role? Like what was your route into where you are today?
Well, I was a player down here for about 7 or 8 years in the 80s and early 90s, and whilst I was playing I got my coaching badges and got myself sort of fully qualified to be a coach once I knew my playing career was going to come to an end. And then I've been here for 35 years now in various different roles, culminating in this job which I've been doing for about 16.
What sort of roles have you done as well?
So once I'd finished playing, I was the second team coach, which is like the reserve team, so I looked after the young players and the academy players in that time. Then I was promoted to first team coach, and then I took on the Director of Cricket role as well as the first team coach, so that's kind of encapsulates the whole cricket club in terms of every team that Notts run, from under 10s boys through all of our girls age group teams up to the professional team that plays out here.
Awesome. And what sort of skills would you say are kind of essential in your role? What are the most important skills?
Well, now it's a management and administration role, it's a leadership role, it's about leading people, selecting the right people for the right jobs, particularly on the coaching staff and on the playing side, trying to build that team, that professional group. It's about being able to administer a budget, a seriously large budget for professional cricket, make sure that that is spent and not overspent and spent in the right way. So those are the I think two key skills, are the administration, management, and as I say, leadership as well is crucially important when you've got a playing staff of about 20 and a working staff probably of about another 12 to 15 people.
Awesome. And a lot of people might be interested in a career in cricket. What advice would you have to any young people wanting to kind of follow in your footsteps?
I think perhaps we broaden it out beyond cricket. So any sport, any sort of interest that people have, is if you get involved in that's a passion for you, it doesn't feel like it's going to work then. As I've said before, I think I don't feel like I come to work. I come to Trent Bridge and do my passion, which is now being involved in cricket. So I think anything that a young person is involved in as a hobby, is there a way of making that your job? And if there is, grab it, because you won't have that sort of Monday morning feeling that a lot of people have with the reluctance to go to work.
We're finally here at the Pavilion. Thank you for joining us on our virtual work experience.
We hope that you've enjoyed, and don't forget to fill in your booklets all the way through and check out the description of this video for a little certificate and that you can print out to say that you've completed the video work experience.